Hello and welcome to another edition of Talking Basketball Podcast. I am Mark.
I am Paul. Hello.
Hello. And we have got a guest in the studio, but on the line, technically. So is it in the studio? I'm not sure. Do we count that?
Mark, we have got a fantastic guest.
How fantastic
a really exciting guest today.
Very exciting.
And I tell you what, without any further ado whatsoever. Yeah, now stand and cheer. Yeah, God. Number 11, representing Molten Basketball, the brand manager for UK and Ireland, Paul Reaney.
Welcome, Paul.
Thanks for the big build-up, lads. I hope I can live up to it.
Oh, you have to now. You got no choice.
I'll try my best.
Paul, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, lads. I appreciate it.
No, it's good. It's, you know what? One of the things that we really focused on in this part is everyone looks at basketball at the end product, and they see the 48 minutes, and it's everything around it, all the organizations around it, the coaches, the players, the suppliers, the distributors, the people who put the courts down, the mascots, the entertainment. There's so much that's involved in the game that it sort of encapsulates it, and that's why we love doing these interviews. And yeah, what an opportunity.
Well, today is the most unique one we've done because we got Paul on, who works for Molten, a huge distributor of, well, not only just basketballs around the world, but loads of different sports. Paul, I've been dying to ask you this. I have to jump straight in. Sorry, Mark. I know you've probably got a where you want to go, but I've been dying to ask Paul this, which is recently, a few months back, the BBL as we know it goes into administration with 777 as the main supplier of basketballs for the entire professional entity in the UK. How far down the line were you? Like how much did that mess you guys up? Did you have 1,000 basketballs, 10,000 basketballs, and was like, hang on, is there a league? What's going on? What's the impact for you guys on that one?
I mean, you just went straight for it.
Massive, in all honesty.
That's a huge question, though, isn't it?
You just went straight for it.
You know what? I'm fine for you to try and knock me out with the first punch. That's okay.
Wow, you didn't even buy him dinner or anything. You just went straight in there.
I'll tell you what. I didn't know you were going to ask this question, but I can explain it best by showing you a basketball. How about that?
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing. Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yes.
So this is the playoffs basketball for this season.
Look at that.
That BBL's league. Can you see that?
Yeah.
With embossed gold, unbeatable.
Yep. So the gold was for playoffs, if I remember rightly. Yeah.
So I personally I didn't personally make the basketballs, but I was obviously in charge of doing this. So we had basketballs we had a blue one for the trophy. No, All-Star, excuse me. Blue one for the All-Star, orange for trophy, and black for
championship.
Black for the regular season. And they'd been made and they'd arrived in the UK. So, and that was a year's work.
Jeez.
That was a year's work. So now I actually put them on Amazon and said, if you want to grab a piece of basketball history, they're on there, so people can go and buy them if they want to. But yeah, they were literally shipped, and as I said, that's a year's work right there.
And that's such history that is actually available there. The last basketball that never got played with.
Yeah.
What an amazing piece of history.
In the FA Cup, isn't it?
Yeah. I'll tell you. So sorry that you said that's been sold on Amazon.
Yeah, they're limited edition because it was a short run because they were only league balls. So I think there's 72 gold ones, 72 All-Star, 108 cup ones, and I think 504 league ones. So they're the mental, and there was size 7 and size 6. So it's it was quite a big project to put that together, in all honesty. And so just like everyone else who's connected to British basketball, I watched that story kind of unfurl and realized that a lot of hard work, not by me but by a lot of people, was gonna come to very little actually. But and when that news story broke, the next day I went to see Chris Grant at the British Basketball Federation and Sarah across at Sheffield, and just said to them, look, I understand that this is going to be a difficult moment for you. The transition from Basketball League to what was going to become Super League basketball would be a difficult one, but they needn't worry as far as ball supply is concerned, because Molten wouldn't waver with our support of elite British basketball, indeed basketball in this country. So yeah, you know what, you have to roll with the punches in life, and that was just something that we had to roll with, unfortunately. But it's a shame that such a lovely basketball wasn't never saw the light of day.
Yeah, just highlighting on it, that must have been great for the guys going through that transition of BBL to Super League, to actually have one of your main partners, one of your main suppliers, associates, turn around and say, guys, we're here.
Yeah, I think it's, the thing is you only find out who your friends are in difficult times, don't you? You know, anyone can be part of a party, but I think when things become difficult and demanding, and I'm probably like you. You know, you do this for a reason. I'm a strong advocate of the power of basketball, and so I want to be part of it. I want to be part of its success, and obviously I understand how basketball can reach different parts of our community. So for us to walk away from it at a time of need is kind of against my personal ethos. Sorry to sound like I should be wearing a white collar, but yeah, that's that. So to me, it was, I thought it was just massively important. I've followed British basketball all my life, and I've kind of, sorry, my phone keeps dipping out. Yeah, I've seen it. I again, like you know, I've seen it ebb and flow in terms of its success, and I think that it's really, we've been supplying basketballs to the top division for 20 years, and I didn't want it to fall apart on my watch, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So so it was and I liked Sarah as well when I met her, as we seemed to have a sort of similar sort of perspective on British basketball. We got on really well. I think we got on really quickly. So it was quite an easy thing to do, to be honest with you, to say, look, don't worry about it, because we have a warehouse in Nottingham full of different types of basketballs. So for us to continue servicing elite basketball was not a problem. In all honesty, there was some things that needed moving around a little bit, but it wasn't beyond me, and it wasn't beyond Sarah, so it wasn't a problem in all honesty.
Could they play with those balls? I know that sounds silly, but could they play with them or not? They're just legally or.
Oh, is there a legality to having BBL on the ball? Is that what you mean?
Well, I'm just curious. Yeah.
Wow.
I wonder if there would be.
I don't want to get drawn on it too much, but I think it would be problematic, because there's obviously. I think it might be somewhat problematic. I don't want to go into.
It needs
I don't want to go into
it?
the nuances of the contract, but I think it would present some problems they probably wouldn't need to fix.
Yeah. As far as the actual ball itself, like, I mean, it's taken you a year to get to that point. Is it as straightforward as, guys, let's rub out the BBL bit and put SLB?
You can't do it. I mean, these are embossed, so it's not possible. It's not physically possible to do that. You can't. No, as I said, these are. As I said, they're. It's not a sticker.
Oh no, sorry. I mean, in the design phase. So literally, in your run, just say, right, let's take that image out. Bam, you put in the new one in. Is that the process?
No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work like that, to be honest with you, because what you got to remember is the people who make these basketballs, they're not just making them for the BBL, especially a company the size of Molten. They're making basketballs for the entire planet. So there's production slots and the shipping, and there's all sorts of things to be involved in that. So it's really not as straightforward as that. For example, if you said to me, I want a talking basketball in your hands now, you know the lead time, and that's going to be 9 months to a year. I would suggest.
Oh wow.
So it's really not straightforward. There's a lot of forward planning. So. Yeah. I mean, even today, I've been working on our plans for sort of late 2025 and 26 about what we're gonna do, what new basketballs we might bring into the UK, their designs, etc. So the lead times are particularly long, and that's probably the same with all with a lot of sports organisations.
Yeah, especially with like something like that where you're manufacturing, you've got retooling, you've got all the dyes, everything, the print. just to get to that stage, even before.
Yeah.
Even if you said it's only those 2 panels that I need to change, it's just it doesn't work that way, does it?
The way I've kind of pictured it in my mind is like a massive shipping container. You can't just kind of suddenly turn and go in another direction. You got to kind of slowly move it to go to where you need to go.
If I'm just guessing, but it's a lot of I've spent quite a lot of time in manufacturing and engineering and stuff, and a lot of the times just in time manufacturing, like Paul said, with the slots, you tend to have we're making this between there, and then we've got to down the tools to put different tooling on. So we lose like X amount of days because we're putting different tooling on, program the machines, get them all ready. Then that's going to be cutting, and then it's going to run 2,000 balls of this design. Then we're going to do a nut slot, and then there's another slot, and you have different materials that are arriving, and then a shipping container gets delayed, which has a key material, so then you have to bump a slot, and it's all fun and games.
Well, I'll give you an indication. In the UK alone, we have 39 different models of basketball,
39.
which we could apply. So you can understand that, you know, if you think about that in terms of we want 4 of those to come next week, it just doesn't work like that.
Okay.
39 different types of ball.
Yeah.
That's across different sizes. So you've got obviously 7, 6, 5, 3, and 1.
Of course, yeah. Yep.
And then everything from the 5,000, which is the Olympic basketball, through to the Molten basketballs are all named with numbers. So the 5,000 is the one you'll see in the Olympics and the World Cup final.
Yes.
The 4,500 is what you see in the SLB, and then it kind of goes down from there to there's 8 different models in our BG series, the balls that you'll see with the kind of orange and ivory. So
talk us through that.
So,
talk us through the difference then between, because some people have never put their hands on. Some people's experience of a ball will be the tarmac outside edition ball, one that they will use, and they've never felt a real game ball or a really high quality level ball.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Yeah, I never want this to be like a sales thing, but if you're interested,
definitely.
Basketball, it can be quite interesting. So you'll start with
because it's quite
example,
rubbery. The one on you go to an outdoor court will be quite rubbery, won't it?
Yeah.
I'll talk you through it. So this is the prototype for the Olympic basketball. It's a 5,000. This, so it's not even. This is the reason it's got been because it's been testing. There was a number of different basketballs. So I took this to Team GB about 6 weeks ago, and a number of basketballs, and they test them, and then I asked them questions,
what sort of question? What is that test? Just take us through that a little bit.
No problem. So what I'll do is they'll have an A and a B basketball, and there's different parts of the design. So it might be the depth of with the grooves, for example.
Okay.
So what you'll do is I'll go to a player and I'll spend 5 minutes with one ball, and then I'll ask him to mark out to 10. So it'll be like handling, shooting, passing, how it feels in the hand, how it feels to pass and receive, etc. And then you go away and you do the same with another model, and then every national team around the planet is all going through the same kind of format. So the brand manager in Sweden will be doing it with the Swedish national team.
Yep.
So Molten go through like an extensive kind of research program where they're looking at how the ball feels, and that's a 5,000. So FIBA decree that it's got to be premium leather, only leather. The World Cup basketball. So then you go into that as an indication on shelf life. So if there's short term usage, slightly shorter term. Then if you go into the SLB, which they use the 4,500, which is a premium leather with a composite in it. So it'll have like have a small amount of rubber in it, and that's for kind of longevity. So you can play with a ball which will last the whole season. It'll continue to perform. Then the next one down is a 3,800, which is a slightly less good quality leather. It doesn't have the same foam backing underlayer, so that's like a league ball, which is super hard wearing, but it's still an indoor ball. Next one down is a 3,000, which is our outdoor basketball, so it's a synthetic leather. It's much more hard wearing. Then you get into 3 rubber basketballs. So you have a 2010, which is, I think I've got 2010 here. It's a little bit like this one. So this was an Olympic replica that we did.
Paul, can I just ask you, how many basketballs have you got in your house?
I was just thinking.
I've got an office with, I'm guessing I've got 500 basketballs in my office. So this is So the 2010 is a rubber basketball with deep channels. So it's designed to replicate the deep channels of the match ball. So you get so a young player can develop that kind of backward rotation on their shot, and then you have a 2016 which are entry level rubber. So and then we have a coloured basketball series as well. But that's it. So you can see how when you put a range together, what I always think is like, who's this for? Which player would this be? So everything from that 12 to 14-year-old kid who's picking a basketball up for the first time, right through to, I don't know, LeBron James using the Olympic basketball. So it's a pretty interesting job. Like, I love it.
I never thought of it like that. The outdoor balls have been designed to help kids get the follow through. I've never even ever considered that. I just thought it was designed like that to be hard wearing outside.
Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, obviously the depth of the channels is something that obviously is a key component in a basketball. So this new Olympic basketball, I know that they tried different levels of how deep the channels are, and so obviously it can only go so deep. And then you've got to think, is it a basketball for like a point guard or a center? Because obviously they want different things, in terms of the weight and the handles and things like that. So there's all those sorts of things to factor in. So again, I don't want this to become a sales pitch, but this is kind of interesting. So the Molten basketball design, it obviously doesn't look like the basketballs of our competitors, and it's got 8 panels instead of it's got 12 panels instead of 8. And the reason for that is it has more grooves in it. So when you get hold of it, you can get into that the grooves more quickly, and you can backward rotate a little bit easier.
Okay.
So that's why the basketball looks like this.
What are the professional players that you speak to in the SLB? What are they? Because I mean, they'll have been using like Molten.
You got one right there. We can do that as well, because for the world of balance.
It's a Wilson one, that one. But they'll be using that. They'll be using the Spaldings and stuff like that. What are they saying about the Moltens and that extra groove? Is that affecting their game, like, for the better?
What? I'm the wrong person to ask, to be honest with you, because they're always very nice, because we sponsor them and we support the Super League, so they only tell me the good stuff. In all honesty, when I did that A/B testing with the prototypes, they were maybe a little bit more honest, and they told me what they liked and what they didn't like. But I mean, as I said, I'd be the last person that tell if they didn't like the ball. They're universally positive about it, to be honest with you. But as I said, that's probably because they don't want to be rude as much as anything else. And I thought you'd probably ask me about other basketball manufacturers, and I'd just like to say that there's a lot of people making good basketballs out there. I just think that Molten make the best.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with competitions. Competition's healthy.
For sure. Yeah.
What I would say is, and this is from experience, is when I've held an NBA basketball. So that's a Spalding at the moment. No, sorry, Wilson.
It's a Wilson. It's a Wilson at the moment. But it was particularly as well the special edition, and the reason I'm caveating that is because if it was the special edition.
I use both.
Oh, I know, but what I'm saying is they also brought that. You actually held that one as well.
It's referring to the NBA Cup one,
and it's the NBA Cup one
and a league one.
But when you did that was the same week that you did that was when JJ Redick made his comments about the basketballs.
Yeah, like the NBA basketballs are horrible. They are horrible, and I'm telling you now, they're horrible. Like, do you know when you've had a basketball? The only way to explain this is you've had a basketball and it's about 10 years old.
Yeah.
And it's really slippery, and you've played it on outdoor courts for forever.
Yeah.
That's what an NBA basketball feels like.
The one that feels like
rock hard.
Yeah, but also
slippery. Like
it's got a layer of dust on it almost. Where it's
like, really, really odd. Yeah. Really odd. I mean, because I expected, and look, Paul, I'm not. I've played with lots of basketballs. I'm not beefing anyone up, but when I've felt the nice Moltens, they're nice, and you feel that quality when you pick the ball up. You feel it and just go, nice, and that's what I was expecting to be magnified when I picked up the NBA basketball, I thought no basketball in the world is going to feel better than this. And I was shocked to be like, this is the worst ball I've ever held in my life.
So
The stuff in the UK, the Molten basketballs and the SLB are better than the NBA ones. It's horrible.
See,
and I wasn't the only one to say that. Who was there.
No. So I remember the Spalding ones that had I think one had silver logo, one had a gold logo, they had different. I think the silver one was the middle one, and for some reason I preferred the feel of that to the more expensive. I don't know why. And it's funny how there's some balls in different ranges that you go, you seem to have got it right here, because this one's just got a bit too much of this or too much of that. But then I brought a ball to you, what was it, the other week? So it was my daughter's one, and I completely overinflated it. Obviously, Paul, I'm sure you'll think that's a crime. But you just bounced it a tiny bit, and it was like up in the ceiling. So
yeah, I mean, it's a nice. Do you know what? It's a nice part of my job is that. So I started playing basketball when I was 11. I was addicted to it from quite early on, and I played for hours and hours on my own. So I know what I'm looking for when I have to test a basketball. I spent more time shooting on my own than I have playing by a long distance. And so, yeah, it's a nice part of my job that I can, if someone gives me a basketball, go away and test it, and I can tell them what I think. It's it's nice. It's a real, as I said, I love this job, and that's a really nice part of it.
How do people, like, it's going to sound silly, do people need to maintain it? Do the people need to look after them? Is there things that people could do to?
Yeah, if you got an indoor ball, don't bounce it outside.
Yeah, don't bounce it in the car park.
Anyone touches an indoor ball and they're like that in the car park, it's like, whoa.
They're bouncing it
Let
across
me
the car
stop
park
you right
on
there.
the gravel.
Don't bounce that ball.
Yeah, I mean, there is that. I mean, obviously our top 3 match balls, as I said, the 5,000 is designed for elite competition. It's so, it hasn't got maybe the lifespan of some of the other ones. Yeah. But don't get me wrong. If you look after it, it'll last you a lifetime. And that's the thing about basketballs; they can often last a very, very long time. But as I said, if you're gonna practice as an entry level player, you'd go for a 3800. If you want that performance element, you go for a 4500. So it just depends really what you're looking for, to be honest with you. Depends how important it is. Real leather is as well, because obviously there's a price differential. That the 5,000 is a more expensive basketball than the 4,500 and the 3,800. In terms of like upkeep, it's not something I've really thought of, to be honest with you. It's I don't know. It's like
Well, I mean, this is a man with 500. You got 500 there, so you're probably like, I can't remember where I've got them.
Ultimate question, Paul. Your favorite basketball of all time? If you're on a desert island that just happened to have a basketball court in the middle, and you were only allowed one ball, what ball would that be?
Well, I've got 2 answers to that, because when I started playing, so I played in the 80s, and that ball that you were describing, as far as it being sandy and it not really having any grip, etc.
Yeah.
I had one of them, and I had one of them for a very, very long time, and it was rubbish, but I loved it, because I tell you what, my handling became so good, because I'd practiced so much with a really poor basketball, that when I went into a league game and someone gave me a ball that was actually it could perform, it was amazing. It was like driving a Ferrari when you've been driving around in a Robin Reliant. It was amazing. So I would say that, and then so
I'm imagining Paul sat there with like the 500 basketballs all around him.
Like,
now.
like when you see kids in the ball pit at like a soft play, and he's there, he's just got all of them like laid around. That's his office.
and then the other one that this is quite interesting. So at the moment, the BBL use the 4500.
Yeah.
And we're just looking at the 4550, which has a slightly different finish to it. And I'm just toying with the idea of maybe phasing that in next season. So one's got the leather grip, which offers the 95% more grip, which, as I said, the players have really reacted strongly to, and they've been using that for quite some time. The 4550 has a pebble grip. So I'm just at the moment, I'm just talking to the SLB about maybe moving to the 4550. It's a very nuanced, but I think if you got them both in your hands, some people would like one and some people like the other. I quite like the 45-50, so I'm going to say that's maybe where the SLB might head in the next year or two. So I'm going to say that's my other favourite. So the first basketball I ever used, and maybe the most recent.
No, I can appreciate that. There was one that we always played with. I can't remember what make it was.
I want to say it was Baden for some reason or something like that.
No,
or
it was
something
random. It was so random.
But it was the same
nice
colourway, wasn't it? Yeah, super slippery.
But just listen, Paul. Paul, do you think you've literally got one of the greatest jobs of all time? Because it must be amazing designing basketballs, going to the games, talking to the players. I mean, that's great. It doesn't get better than that.
I'll tell you how I got the job, if you like. It's kind of interesting.
Go for it.
Yeah.
So I spent all my life in sport. I was a football journalist. I played in soccer. I was nationwide league press officer. I've always worked in sport, and the job to become head of communications came up at the BBL, and I applied for it. And I got down to the last two, and I did a really poor final interview. It was laughingly bad, and yeah, it was really poor. And honestly, I walked away on my head and my hands thinking that went so badly, and I didn't get it. And you know what? Quite rightly, I didn't get it. And I thought, you know what? I want to work in basketball. I looked around. I thought, I like basketball. I've got a real passion for it. And so I looked at Molten's social media account, and my now boss, Edward Lowery, was a lovely fella, and he took my call. And I looked at the social media. I said, "Look, I've seen your social media. I love basketball. I think I can do it better than you're currently doing it." And they didn't have anyone looking after it. So I took it on, and then the former brand manager went traveling, and Edward said to me, "Would you like to crack at the role?" So I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." So I took it on, and I've been doing it for about 18 months now.
Amazing.
And as I said, yeah, it's I love it. It's a great job. I really like it. I really enjoy it. And I love working in basketball because you can see like the potential in it. You can see the potential in basketball. Anyone who's involved in it, and also you can see its strength as well. Clearly, basketball has the ability to affect the lives of people from all parts of our society, and it's lovely to be part of that. I'm probably a bit longer in the tooth than you two, so it's nice to be able to kind of leave a mark a little bit and try and do some really positive things.
Look,
sorry, can I just highlight
how
amazing that was that you had Edward Lowery turn around and be like, I'm going to accept that criticism that someone's saying they can do it better. And then,
it's Lowy, by the way. He'll hammer me if you don't get his pronunciation of his surname right.
What did I say?
Yeah. And it was
but I mean, to take the criticism and then go, let's try it.
LinkedIn. I contacted him through LinkedIn. I just said, look, and it was just a light, and I was polite, and I just said, as I said, I think I could make a contribution to your organisation, and he was kind enough to accept my note.
Give you a shot, bloody hell, that's great.
Awesome. That's really good. That's really good. I mean, look, you've mentioned it a few times. Take us back to where your love for basketball came from.
So it started when you were 11.
Yeah,
with your slippery ball on that court.
No, well, I played for the school team. That's all it was. I was relatively tall and skinny as a kid, so I was just chosen to play for the kind of school team, and I loved it straight away. Again, probably people listening to this podcast, there's probably a lot of people like this. When basketball gets under your skin, it can dominate your thoughts, can't it? And as I said, I used to love practicing. I love the sound of the swish, the sound of the ball bouncing. Those are the things that you kind of fall in love with when you first start playing. And it was something that I could do on my own, and practice, which I really liked. My dad's a fisherman, and I think there's quite a lot of similarities between the two in many ways. You kind of playing basketball can be quite the solitude can be quite nice. So I practiced, and then at night I'd listen to Armed Forces radio on an AM radio, and it was like Duke versus Notre Dame, and I had no idea what Duke versus Notre Dame was, but again, I just loved the culture, and it was no one else was playing basketball at this time. It was something that was very much a minority sport in the early to mid '80s, and then I was watching like Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, and looking at the Converse weapon and the boots, and seeing those, and thinking that's amazing. And a pen pal I had at the time sent me a Boston Celtics cap, and I loved it.
Oh wow!
And then obviously Michael Jordan comes on the scene, and it goes, stratospheric. You know, you've got this human beings like ball sports version of Muhammad Ali in terms of the way that he redefined the sport. And yeah, I loved it. And then started playing National League. And we talked about this a little bit earlier off air, but I found my level playing National League when I tried to box out one of the Brixton Top Cats and he jumped over the top of me. And yeah. But yeah, that's happened a few times actually about finding my level because I went.
And you're 6'2".
I am. I'm 6'2". Yeah, and he jumped over the top of me when I tried to box him out. Yeah.
You do get that every now and then, National League, especially as some of these guys, the younger guys, are moving their way up the league. I remember I said to you earlier, I think it was Bristol, but we were basically playing a 2-1-2 zone on defense, and I was on the back left, and I just remember this guy kind of jumping over my back, and he kind of, I was looking to my left, and he jumped out of the key over my back, caught the ball and dunked it. And it was like,
yeah, what am I going to do?
What has just happened?
Yeah,
what has just happened?
No, you can't do anything to that, can you?
But
yeah, so I just continue the tale because it's kind of interesting. So it happens again. I find my level again. I'll tell you about that. But so I went to university in London, and there was a court on the campus which I found out you could not break into, but I knew there was a window I could get in. So it was literally like wearing like a cassette, like a Walkman cassette, and just playing on my own with one light underneath a hoop for hours, you know, just and I loved it, absolutely loved it. And so then I went to the University of Maryland for a year on a academic rather than a basketball kind of it wasn't a scholarship, it was just part of my degree. And while I was there, I don't know if Walt Williams, I don't know if their name means anything to you. He played in the NBA, and so he'd come and play on the outdoor courts. So the Maryland Division 1 team would play on the outdoor court. So I'd go along. I'd probably be playing for 8 years. So, and I was 19. I knew my way around it. I was all right. But then you see that level, from a country and a culture of steeped in basketball, and these boys have been playing all their lives, and they're they're 6'5", they're supreme athletes. So I can remember one of the guys who I saw on the court. We were driving along, and my wife said, we actually pointed this bloke, went, "Oh my God, you seen him? He was massive. He was huge, he's like a Marine, and he's 6'5", and I was playing on these courts, and I was marking him. And the first time I went a bit close, just went round me and stuffed it, and then I thought I'm just going to hang off him a little bit and give myself a bit of room, and he just sank a three. It was just I was just completely out of my depth, But yeah, but I loved it. I loved it.
So hang on, he played in an era where he would have played against Jordan.
So that was like
Magic and Larry.
92, 96, something like that. He was drafted.
So ipso facto, in a roundabout way, you've played with someone who's played with Larry Bird.
Well, I don't like to say I shaped Walt Williams, but I probably. He was cool. He was a lovely fella, actually. He was. There was no airs or graces. He was just he was dead cool about playing, But yeah, so I'd go and watch Maryland while I was there. It was brilliant. So they have a 17,500 indoor all-seater stadium. It's at Bird Stadium. And actually the women were ranked number 1 as well while I was there, and Virginia were number 2. So they'd sell out for that as well. So it was a great time. Really, really good fun.
We've talked about loads about arenas in the UK. It's like one of our biggest challenges, isn't it, more than anything else?
We're getting there, though, aren't we? As I said, what they've done at Sheffield is great. Is really impressive.
That's a nice one.
Yeah, it's a good space. Yeah. So and I think that's only going to increase, isn't it?
Well, Bristol's got their one signed off now, so they're going to start building.
Yeah,
they'll be there for 26.
It's almost like one of the biggest challenges is getting those arenas. With the arenas, I think you get the teams.
Well, if you look at it, you think you're going to have Bristol soon. You've got Sheffield, you've got Leicester, you've got Manchester, arguably Newcastle, and
London,
Glasgow. London, yeah, you have to put I won't say tick on that because you've got a great arena there, but it's not their arena.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking. So, because I think one of the big things that is when we talked about with Paul Blake, his biggest thing he was saying with Newcastle is how they built sustainability. And making sure
the foundations, the community,
everything is around in that local area.
But there's so many blueprints that people can use,
Yep.
like Newcastle. Another great example
Caledonia.
would be Milton Keynes, the Breakers. They're now in NBL Div 1. They got a great model. I mean, what the stuff Peter Taylor has set up, like up there is great. And yeah, it's just with all of that, you get the arena. I think you then get more teams in the SLB, which is one of the things that we're really like hoping. That's why I thought the SLB Cup competition, especially last weekend, where you had like I think Hemel still got to play Manchester, but you've got most of them have played.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Don't listen now, but all the teams lost to the SLB, but it was great. I love that because it says that's where we want to go to in the future.
There was
Those
always
teams.
You know what? There's some really good people involved with those organisations. I mean, I know Lee English very well at Nottingham. He's maybe a friend is maybe a bit strong, but someone I know. And I want the best for those organisations too. I'd love them to be part of what we're trying to do in the SLB for sure.
But the
Wildcat Arena, that's quite a nice one as well.
Yeah,
that's that's going to be. Oh, I'm guessing, but at least 1,000 in there.
Yeah.
But that's the thing.
Yeah, obviously the Wildcats play there, don't they?
Yeah.
Having that Essex Rebel got a nice one as well, haven't they? And when you look at it, you think if they had, you're talking at the time, Paul, when you were say in the States, and that was early 90s, around that sort of time.
Yeah, 92, yeah.
And they've got a 17,000 seater stadium, early 90s. Yeah. We didn't. Yeah. I think in Portsmouth was Fratton Park, even 17,000 seater. That's in the 90s. Like, that's probably still standing and stuff. But you know what I mean? Like that's a big arena for like the UK in certain like in indoor wise. That'd be gigantic.
I'll tell you what. On a related subject, I read something today. I've got a quiz question for you lads.
Oh no!
Like, where is the? I read this fact today. I had no idea. This apparently is true. I read it on Wikipedia. But I hope that means it's true. And where do you think basketball was first played in Great Britain?
I'd like to say Portsmouth.
According to this, do you want to have a guess, Paul?
I am gonna go.
Anytime today. That get you. Yeah.
Let's have a guess. I'm gonna go somewhere in the Midlands.
I was thinking Manchester initially because that's
where
the
Midlands,
the main place is.
According to what I read today, it was Birkenhead, right? Which obviously, I'm surprised Cheshire Phoenix haven't tried to kind of claim it slightly.
You said Manchester.
Yeah, well, I was thinking Manchester area. So.
When I said Midlands, I kind of meant Manchester.
This is where it is interesting, though. The year was 1892. So it was the year after Naismith with his peach baskets.
Okay.
That basketball was transported across to Great Britain the year after it was discovered.
Oh wow.
Okay.
The same year as Liverpool Football Club was formed. So what I'm saying is, basketball has been a massive, a part of our kind of national personality for a lot longer than people think.
Well, we were just talking about on the lift in the way up, the new funding that UK Basketball GB have just received
for the 3v3.
Yeah. Well, there's four the Olympics, and they framed quite heavily on the 3v3, but they have framed
because we can win it. I'm assuming. Well, because we have won it in the past.
That's what you do with sport, isn't it? If that's the one you back, that's why cycling's always had a lot of funding because we've been strong in it. So, if you're going to retain a trophy or do well in it, I think that's right. But I mean, yeah, I think that's an interesting. What 3v3? What's your sort of take on that, Paul?
Is that the same ball? Is that the same
no,
ball
it's not. They play with a slightly heavier size 6 of the 3v3.
Why do they use a smaller ball?
It's easier to handle apparently in a smaller space.
Because the size 6, but it's a heavier size 6.
But
so
why would you have a different ball though? Like it's basketball. Why would they say we're going to have, even though it's like half court or like a shooting court?
Don't know.
I wonder why they
It is a different game. I mean, I've noticed quite a lot of 3v3s coming up quite recently, and they're promoting it quite a lot.
Do women have 6, or do they use a 6.5 as well?
No, I think they both. I think both use a 6. It's just, I'd say it's just a heavier version.
Oh, okay.
So is it a 6 but weighted for a 7? Is it?
Yeah, I think you might be right there, Mark. Yeah, I think that's about right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that'd be right for muscle memory more than anything else. Like if you've got that kind of your contact point is probably not too different, but your actual muscle.
It'll be interesting feeling what a 6 is that's heavier, because I do a lot of coaching with kids, so I play with the 6s and the size 5s, and I'm quite used to it. It'll be interesting what it's like with a heavier 6. I've got some history for you, Paul, though I cannot verify that this is true whatsoever, but I heard it once and I was like, that is a great story. So again, I've got no information, but there was a lady in the UK who contacted Naismith and said, really want to start playing basketball. Can you tell me the rules? Can you go over it, but explain it a bit in detail for me? Anyway, so allegedly he broke the court up into 3 sections and tried to explain it like that, moving from one section to the other, and that lady took that, and that's where netball came from.
Oh, it's interesting. I didn't know that.
She was doing it and it was like just turned into a different sport. I cannot verify that, but I read it and there was this big article and I was like, wow.
Would make sense.
Lads, can I drag the conversation back to Molten with a interesting fact?
Yeah.
Okay. So as you know, the
get another ball.
You get another ball.
Get another ball.
This is quite a nice one. So this is the 38. This is a 38.
Oh,
50.
Paris 2024.
Yeah, it's a Paris 2024 ball. But what I want to tell you is, see the design of the Molten basketball.
Yeah. So it's got the white. The
that's
white.
Right.
Yeah.
It's designed by an Italian designer called Giugiaro, and he also was the design guru. So he designed the Lotus Esprit car, but this is where it gets really good. He designed the DeLorean, which is the Back to the Future car.
Wow.
So the same guy who designed the Molten basketball designed the DeLorean car from Back to the Future. So you've got a design classic every time you pick up a Molten basketball.
That is amazing.
That's very cool.
Hang on.
Yeah, no one knows. That's why.
On.
Tell the story.
And the Lotus Esprit, as in the 70s Lotus Esprit.
Yeah,
The
he's a car designer, so he designs Maseratis, Ferraris. The Lotus Esprit and the DeLorean are his 2 most famous. He also designed the Volkswagen Golf. But yeah, the DeLorean and the Back to the Future and the Molten basketball are all from the same designer.
I'm just saying,
Marty McFly had a Molten basketball. Maybe he did.
If I had a DeLorean, I would have the flux capacitor in it. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. And I'd have the dashboard saying 1955.
There's a logo idea for you. You could put a flux capacitor on the
but
side.
That's what I was going to say. But
designer.
Why isn't there? I mean, that's like an amazing bit of information. Why don't you guys design a basketball with a DeLorean thing, Back to the Future DeLorean, for in honor of the designer?
I'll come back to you in a year. Yeah.
Hey, you said 9 months. We're not waiting a year.
I'm giving myself a bit of wriggle room.
Wow. No.
I tell you what, Paul's got a meeting with Edward tomorrow, and he's going to be like, "I've got a great idea for you. Back to the Future DeLorean basketball."
But when
he wore those Nike famously, those shoes, Nike Vandals, didn't they? They made them, didn't they?
Yeah, the laces. But
that's right.
So when you're playing and you see, or when you're watching the game and so forth, are you looking at the performance of the basketball as well as watching a game? If that makes sense.
100%.
And what
are you looking at? Then?
That's what I was going to say. Explain to us what you're looking at.
So I watch in the first. So obviously the temperature of the basketball changes throughout the course of the game.
Yep.
So you'll see the ball being warmed up. So I'm watching the warm up. I'm watching how the handling is.
Paul is on a different level, isn't he?
So that was one of my questions.
Different level here.
I 100% was going to ask: do you warm the balls? Because I think of it as a leather ball, and I immediately think of
like an F1 car.
F1 wheels, and you put the tires, you get the warmers on. It's like, why are they not warming these things?
Yeah, the technology's changed, to be honest with you. So if you asked me that question 15 years ago, the answer would be yes. the balls used to have to be kind of bounced in. But over the course of the last 15 years, the technology in the balls have changed. The composite, something like the 4500, which is used in the SLB, the composition, the rubber versus leather competition changes, so they're much more active, much more quickly. So by the time you've warmed them up, they should be good to go. But as I said, I'm watching that. So I'm watching it about when it's getting hotter, and when there's sweat in the fourth quarter, I'm watching the handling then, etc. So yeah, I'm kind of a lot of the time because I go to all the finals, because obviously I present the MVP trophy, and a lot of the time I don't really relax and watch the game. Sometimes I do, but most of the time I'm watching the performance of the product and just sort of seeing, so as I said, so the 4550 is a result of watching the 4500s, thinking, what small changes can we make to improve the quality and the performance of the product. So yeah, in answer to your question, I'm not always watching the game.
No, I mean, I always wondered that, because as we said, JJ Redick famously, when he was talking about balls, and obviously it's a different brand, but he was complaining quite heavily about the balls that they were using. They said this type of ball needs to be broken in. So you're just giving us, here's the new game ball, and they're like, this ball is rubbish. But you're giving us the practice balls.
No, I'm telling you, once they're broken in, they're still rubbish. They're the worst basketballs you have ever felt in your life. I'm telling you now.
Paul's trying.
Have you ever felt an NBA game? Sorry, like an NBA game ball?
I think we spoke before. I said you can ask me anything, but I won't be. Will not be criticising other manufacturers' products.
Look, I mean,
that's not my. You know what?
We can say it. We can say it, but I know someone who is actually on this. He came on this show. He got an NBA. He bought an NBA basketball that was used.
All right.
And it came over, and everyone was like, "Oh man, we can't wait for this." And it came over, and again, everyone was like, "Oh, maybe you just got a dud," because it felt horrible. And again, no one wanted to play with it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it is funny that I do not associate that I still associate Spalding with the NBA, which is not the case, but I just associate with it because that was the era. That makes sense.
Yeah. You do Spalding. Spalding
that's
NBA.
just what I associate with the NBA. I don't, you just associate and like with the Olympics and with FIBA sort of thing. I will look at the Molten ball, and it's like that was the ball here in Europe.
But when you go into
ball was in America, and that was it. It was like they're the two balls.
But when you go into the detail of the basketballs, you then get we started to focus on it and go, hang on, when the Olympics came up, all the players were pre-playing with the Olympic Paris 2024 balls. So, in that lead up, was it 4 or 5 weeks in the lead up to
Yeah.
So when you're getting feedback from these players, what I'm interested in is there was a stat, and I actually saved it, and it's quite embarrassing. I think it was 43 3-pointers were jacked up in the game just last night, which is Dallas versus Golden State Warriors, and it's the new record for the number of threes taken in a game. It's either 43 or 48, something like that. It's ridiculous.
I've got a new one for you, Mark.
And
NBA record, 75 missed threes in a single game.
Oh yeah.
And that was this week, the Bulls
Chicago
versus the Hornets.
Hornets, yeah.
That's the one.
So with these two stats in mind, it's all about the three. What would a shooter look for in a ball in comparison to what your center or your forward's going to look for? What's the difference in that feedback?
Well, yeah, as I said, a lot of it will be about the depth of the channels. So if you have a particularly deep channel, you can just get that feel and that rotation much more quickly as a shooter. As far as a center is concerned, they're just not that. It's not as interesting, that element of it. They don't want to be able to receive it and hold it really quickly.
So the grip.
It'd be the quality of the grip,
yeah.
And then obviously with that as well, Mark, you've got the ability of the ball to deal with kind of sweat and the conditions and the floor and things like that, and usage and temperature. So those are the things you have to probably factor in, because as you say, with a center, they're not going to be dribbling or shooting an awful lot. They're just going to have the ball in their hands and trying to get the hoop as quickly as possible. So I suppose they're just looking for, as you say, just all out grip really. Whereas maybe if there is a nuanced difference between the two, the point guards would probably be looking for more feel, as it were. So the ability to, how does it feel when you're dribbling it, and as I said, how does it feel when you're shooting it? You're getting that good backwards rotation and that high arc,
I'm just jumping around here. All these questions are just popping in my mind. But I know you said before that you get the players' feedback on the build-up to creating that ball. But after the Olympics, like 2024, would you then go to some of the teams then and say, guys, because I mean, for example, an NBA player, imagine they went back to the NBA and said, we actually prefer Moltens that we just used in the Olympics. I wonder what they're like. I wonder what they say about it.
Even just down to this is 12 panel, not 8 panel. And, you got someone like, say, Kawhi Leonard who's got hands like, Slender Man. Like,
but does anyone get that feedback, Paul?
It's probably above my pay grade, in all honesty.
Okay.
That's probably a conversation that's held between national federations and Molten.
Yeah.
My remit is to go and do the kind of research before those competitions actually take place.
I've got another great idea for you, Paul. Another great one. You can have this one. Here you go.
Thanks.
Ready? Look at that. A Molten stress ball.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
That's a great one, isn't it?
100%.
Yeah, what's the retail on that, would you say?
I don't know. But I always have one when I'm talking little basketball here.
On the subject of designs, this is another neat ball that we did for Basketball Island, which is a logo that I really, really like. And there, it's like it's got that clover basketballs inside the basketball, so you can do lots of stuff with rubber. Obviously, as I said, we're not the only company to be doing this, but this is a basketball which I got a phone call from Central America saying, we love the Basketball Island basketball. Can we import them? And then we looked at maybe taking them into New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, those places with large Irish communities.
Awesome.
It's something. So we own distribution rights for the UK and Ireland, so we're not allowed to distribute anywhere else, and we don't. But yeah, it just shows you how a basketball like this can travel around the world.
Yeah, everywhere over the world. Yeah. Wow.
I mean, it is such an accessible sport in so many respects. Yeah, often people talk about accessibility is always the challenge in some ways, but ultimately, if you've got a ball, you can just go find a flat space and practice, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Paul, you skipped over it, but I know there's a story here, and I feel like I feel we've got a lot of camaraderie with you, because some of the stories you're saying, a bit like someone jumping over you, I'm like, oh yeah, that happened to me too. But there is another one which we definitely share. Well, definitely my brother and his friend, and we utilised the court where they made their own basketball ring, where they got I think it was like a massive plank of wood.
It was a scaffolding
board. And then they got a big bit of flat wood. That was your backboard. Yep. And then they actually got a ring. And then I think they went to a workman in the street and said, can you just drill this onto this piece of wood, please? And there you go. We've got an 8-foot basketball ring, and we got the chalk, drew out a very crude basketball court. And that was what, 2-3 summers all long?
More than that, but that was the Spectrum.
But you did say
that was awesome.
Yeah, it was named the Spectrum. It said Spectrum down the plank of wood. But you did something similar, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Like, I feel as though I'm confessing to a criminal past here, like breaking into gyms and things like that. But when I was about 15, I got a basketball ring from a local court, and my dad's an engineer. So my dad's he used to work for ICI in Middlesbrough, and so I got this ring. Said, Dad, I really want a backboard on the front of the garage. So I grew up on a kind of like a private estate next to a council estate. So it was like those old 70s houses, 2 up, 2 down type thing. Bit more than that, but not much more. So we had to drive on there. My dad, like, bless him, what a legend. He literally welded the backboard to, so got a backboard, got the ring, painted it, etc., and he welded it to the garage so I could play on it. And I'll tell you what, my girlfriend at the time was another legend. What she did, I don't know if you remember the old Air Jordan, the Air Jordan 1s, that logo with the sort of chevrons.
Yeah.
So she tipped up and she'd done a stencil for it. So I sprayed that onto the backboard, and then that red, white, and blue dusty basketball. Again, I spent hours playing on that, and it got to the point where I could run, jump up the side of the garage onto the brickwork and dunk it. And that was a. By the way, I just like to say that I've dunked a basketball once in my entire life, and there was no one there.
Did it really happen then, Paul?
You know what? I reckon the only thing I can think of, the net must have been like 9'6" or something like that. But honestly, I was on my own in America. I went to Camp America. I was about 19, and I did it, and I was like, I couldn't believe it. Like, so I've only done it once in my life.
Did you like turn around, and look like no one saw it? What's going on?
Yeah, it was a tree falling in the woods moment.
Travesty.
Still counts, Paul. Still counts. If you saw it, it counts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what? I mean, look.
But like, I just like, where did you get like from after getting your continuing with your university at in Maryland? Like, what then gets you into getting into sport? Like, how long were you there for?
Again, what, in America or back in the UK?
No, like how long were you in America for?
I was in America for a year. It was it's quite a dry academic topic, but I did research on education between 1820 and 2020. Or no, must have been before that, 1720 and 1920 at the Library of Congress. So I had a really interesting sort of academic gig. And then as I say, I came back and completed my degree, and then I moved to Brighton to be with the girl that was in America with after my degree. That's right, because we split up and I got back together. And there was a local commercial radio station asking for volunteers, so I went to start doing the sport there. And then someone heard me doing the sport, and they offered me a job working for their company. And that's when I started getting into football. So started getting into writing. Started interviewing footballers. And then started working for brands and things like that, and started working for Shoot. I don't know if you're into football or not, but you know the magazine Shoot.
Yeah. That's old school.
Yeah, so I worked for that for 6 years, as like a journalist.
Who's the greatest football player that you've interviewed?
I spent a week with Gaza.
Oh wow! Oh, that's amazing.
A week with Gaza.
Yeah.
Wow.
Where was
and
that?
you're still here. Wow.
I was in Malta. So I spent a week with Gaza in Malta. Oh, I did an advert with Pavel Nedved as well, which is you know, the Juventus guy. I don't know if you know him. Like, so he was Ballon d'Or winner.
Wow.
Okay.
So, hang on a second. They're upstairs. I've got some boots signed by him. That's what I was going to show you.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So,
blimey.
So I spent a week with Gaza, and I played in a game with Gaza, Chris Waddle. I'm probably name dropping now. Gary McAllister, Peter Reid, Benetti, Dean Saunders, Lee Sharp. Yeah, I played a bit of football. I played with the game in Malta, but it was a training game, and they made me donkey of the game, which I thought was a bit unkind, like, you know. Yeah.
Gaza would have been all over that.
Honestly, I was having to kick about with him. I couldn't believe it. I had about 10 minutes, just me and him and a ball. It was amazing. It was amazing.
Wow.
Magician.
I got a Gaza story, and I'll tell you it when I met him. I'll tell you it off air. Yep. It's not appropriate to say on air.
No.
But remind me, Paul, and I'll tell you what that story is.
I've got something I'll tell you about Gaza, which I don't think you'd mind me saying. It's quite interesting.
Hang on, are you mates?
No way. No, I just spent a week with him. That's all. I was like his, because I was head of communications for this football match, but I was also kind of chaperoning him. And so you'd go out into Malta and with someone that famous, and honestly, I felt sorry for him by the end of it, because he'd not been left alone. He'd literally walk 20 meters and someone's, excuse me, Paul, can you speak to my mate on the phone? Can I have a camera? Can you sign a picture rather? Can you sign this? And so he said, look, Paul, he said, if I'm in a situation and I need to get out of there because it's getting too much for me, I'll scratch the bottom of my chin, and that's like for like 3 or 4 minutes. And if I scratch my nose, that means get me out of there right now. And if I scratch the top of my head, I'm all right. So I'd make eye contact with him, and then he'd send me a sign about where he was with it all. Because if Paul Gascoigne walks away from a group of people, he's Paul Gascoigne walking away from a group of people. But if his So I would say, look, Paul needs to be at his next appointment now.
Yeah.
So I just started to pull him away. But honestly, if you saw how he had to live his life, you'd think that's completely fair enough, because it must be incredibly difficult to be that famous.
Yeah.
I felt sorry for him at the end.
You know what? More recently, I've seen famous people, and I've just gone, you know what? I'm not going to go and talk to them, because yes, it would be really cool to go and say hello. But again, bit what you said, they're human beings. I'm just going to leave them alone. And I'll just have that nice memory of going, oh yeah, there they were. I saw them. But yeah.
It's funny you should say that, because with doing the football writing, meet a lot of kind of famous footballers, and I never ever kind of broke character as far as that's concerned. I never ever sort of got them to sign anything or anything. I just thought it's just not right, you know. It's just not right. Why you've got to, and also I think it undermines your integrity as a journalist as well. If you do that, you've got to kind of maintain, as you say, your level of professionalism. Not unlike you two, of course.
I'd be getting the notebook straight out. I think look, you're absolutely right. I try and be the same. I think there are always exceptions to the rule. If someone said, "Hey, you go into that room. Oh, there's Michael Jordan in there," be like, something's getting signed. You can tattoo my lip. I don't care. Like, that's Michael Jordan.
The only thing I would say,
even if you just said like, I could shake your hand.
The only thing I'd say to counter that is you may have an experience, and I get exactly what Paul's saying.
You might not have a good
where
one.
These guys, they've been harassed for 3 hours, and you come up to them and say, "Can I have your autograph, please?" And you catch them at a bad moment or whatever, and then you think, I had one with Ricky Gervais.
Yeah.
So I thought he was quality, and I met him, and he was towards me. He acted exactly like
his character.
He does in character and extras. Like he had no interest, and I was kind of like, I just left him alone. But it was like I just wanted an autograph. But it was that was kind of the start for me of, you know what, I'm gonna have it in my head what they're like rather than have that interaction. I'm going to leave them alone. So that's kind of the reason I leave them alone now.
So you've done a lot of that sort of media, PR work, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
How do you think from a perspective of with the league now that it's changed from BBL to SLB? What do you think their like challenges are? Because it's kind of like a start over again, but not in a way, isn't it? It's a real, fighting viewership and people not knowing what's going on. A lot of their teams imploded, like player-wise, and a lot of talent went out the league. Some came in, and
well, first thing I'd say on that, Mark, is the people who I meet in Super League basketball, they want the success of basketball in this country more than you could probably understand. And by virtue of the fact that you two do a podcast, I'm sure that you're of a similar ilk.
Yeah,
you ultimately want the health and well-being of basketball and for that message to be spread. And I mean, the thing is right, sport's only as good as its stories and how well you tell those stories. And that's why football's so successful, isn't it? Because we know what the stories are, and the stories, the tendrils of the story stretch back 100 years, and then they stretch back into our childhood, etc. And until you have that established, it's incredibly difficult to be successful. I'll tell you what I think British basketball needs, and this is me speaking, Paul Reaney, by the way, not as Paul. It needs a baddie.
Yeah, yeah.
Every story needs a baddie.
Yeah. Right?
You're
only as good as you only. You got the good hero. You got to have the good villain, haven't you?
You have. I mean, I'm not sure on the pronunciation. Is it Aaron Rye?
Aaron Rye.
Yeah. He could be a good baddie.
He's having a crack at it, isn't he? To be honest with you. And, again, he seems like a lovely. I've never met him, but he seems like a lovely fellow. But he's
leaving Cheshire, going for London, it sort of becomes the anti-hero, doesn't he, in a way? And
it does, yeah. But I'm sure he looks like he's got broad enough shoulders to deal with that, and I'm sure he has. He seems like a clever and an affable man.
Oh yeah,
but,
it's. I mean, we've noticed it this season. It's quite exciting because the games are a little bit closer.
Something feels different, I think.
Something feels
maybe the injection of the young American guys coming over. That's what it feels like to me.
There's
a little bit more aggression sometimes.
Yeah,
when they drive inside the paint, sometimes every now you think, hang on, and they're trying to like take their head off when they're dunking it and stuff like that. That's what you want to see.
Yeah. There needs to be a bit more uniformity in the actual video output that's getting put out there. But I love the fact they've got local commentators and that sort of thing. That's brilliant. I love that. That's, there's some people who just do such a great job, like when you get like Dan Routledge and Reaney and stuff, and they just sat there chatting away, and you go, they know the game, and they'll pull up a stat from 20 years ago, and you go, that's what
Dan
you want.
Routledge does.
Yeah, but that's what you want.
40 years ago, maybe as well.
That's what you want. Because it's telling the story. It's saying, hey, by the way, there's a whole history of. But I mean, that's why we started this, because it's the history of basketball in the UK. It sort of gets lost, and in football, there's that tribalism, because it's all, this is your town, this is where your heritage is, this is where you're from, and you can support that. And because there aren't as many top flight basketball teams, and it doesn't get shown on telly, that sort of bit got lost, which is really a real shame, because when you go to Europe, you see the connection between the football. There's Panathinaikos football team. There's Panathinaikos basketball team. They get the same amount of people going to the games, and they're all lunatics.
Also, I think the geography in the UK, like in football, people from London will say, yeah, I support Man City or Man United, whoever it is at the moment. However, when I go around the UK, you hear people say, no, I support Solent Kestrels, and they're in National League Div 2. And I'll be like, but you could support SLB team as well. No, I support Solent Kestrels.
Yeah, it's all about the local geography.
Yeah.
Always.
Paul, I do. I mean, I'm quite an advocate for what I'm about to say, and I feel like I've said it a few times now, which is I do think where the SLB could be better, bit where you're saying about a bad guy, I do think the saying is, and I've said this loads of times, I think it is Elton John's who said, it doesn't matter if they write good or bad, as long as they spell your name right. And I really believe that with the SLB. But when something more negative comes out, it's almost like this cloud comes over and it goes hush hush, don't talk about it, and then 5 weeks later you'll hear rumors on a little in a circle somewhere, and you go, oh, that happened, and it's never talked about. A bit like, I honestly don't know what happened, but the Cheshire Phoenix, the two guys who've just been chucked out of the team last week, this little cloud comes over and we're all going, why have those two guys gone? Whereas if that was football, Sky Sports would be going, what is going on? And we would all know by now. Yeah. But I don't know.
Talking about two different things, though, there with respect, Paul, because you've got the kind of muscular nature of football can deal with some of those kind of brickbats, whereas a sport which is comparatively embryonic and needs to attract sponsors is understandably a little bit more fearful to celebrate stories which are in inverted commas negative. That's all I would say as far as that's concerned. Just to give SLB a little bit of kind of kudos as far as that's concerned. I think it's much more understandable for them to maybe protect themselves against negative press. Because I heard you say that on the most recent podcast. Now listened to it and thought, oh yeah, there is that. And also the other thing is of course we don't know the full story as well. So
no, of course not.
We're guessing, weren't we, when we heard?
Yeah, it's really, really important that we don't make too many statements that we might regret in the long term.
That's just
sorry to come across all.
No, not at all. No. Look, it's the same as we found the same thing with a lot of people very frustrated when the league changed as it did, and the communication was negligible, and a lot of people were just like, well, that's it, that's over. And even though there was no hint, or there might have been, obviously in the background everyone's pedaling like mad to get stuff done, and obviously like you were saying with the balls and all the challenges and suppliers and distributors and sponsors and everything that was all behind it, trying to align stuff and get things in place and schedule things, and it must have been a logistical nightmare. But it was one of those, no news is good news, but from a fan's perspective, and that's the bit that I don't think ever was acknowledged by the league.
You know what, Mark? In all honesty, I don't know an awful lot more than you do as far as that's concerned. And I don't really want to know, in all honesty. My remit is in the health and well-being of my brand and these products. So as far as as far as the transition from BBL to SLB is concerned, then I actually think we're in quite an interesting place at the moment, and I really love the inclusion of Falkirk and Nottingham and Hemel, and there was one more, wasn't there? Remind me.
Reading played.
Yeah.
There was two in,
Nottingham Hoods,
St Mirren's from Scotland,
Derby
Falkirk Fury.
Trailblazers, the Derby
Thank you, yeah.
Trailblazers.
Derby
Thank you.
Trailblazers,
Well, I'm sure you two must be encouraged by that, because
yeah,
obviously that's
definitely.
That's what I was going to.
the family growing, isn't it? You know.
Well, that was my next question to you. The one thing about the SLB that was always, the BBL was always that we have the NBL in the UK, and you go up and you go up, and then there's just a stop, and then they had the pyramid of one at the top, and that was it. Whereas and sports fans in the UK would be very, very used to a football league, which has a pyramid, and you go up, and there is an up and down. Now, obviously, you can't get relegated because there's money associated, etc. But having that window to have people compete, when you were calling it, Paul, before even this season came out, about let people in the cup. So when it did, we were really excited by that, because we're like, that's what we want to see. There was some interesting.
I think this cup has highlighted the gap, though.
Oh yeah,
I mean, with some teams, you never know in one game of basketball, and I think you got to look at that. The Hemel game coming up against Manchester, that's top of Div 1, NBL Div 1 versus bottom of SLB. So
it's those sort of games.
That's huge. It'd be great to see where that is, but there's still a gap.
Yes, yes, there is. But it's showing that trajectory. And in the same way that Paul was talking about, if you're practicing, you'd use this type of ball. If you're outdoors, you'd use this type of ball. If you're indoors, you just seriously play, you use this type of ball. And they all have their own merits, but there's always a trajectory. There's always a step forward, isn't there?
I'm going to make a statement now. Big statement. With the SLB using the Molten branded basketball, I think the rest of the UK, Basketball England, should conform.
Really?
Do you like that one, Paul? But they should. They should use the same basketball all the way down.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not even sure what the NBL are using at the moment. They must be using Wilson, I think. I'm assuming it's Wilson.
Do you know?
It's what are they using?
What are they using, Paul? You know.
They used to use Wilson, yeah.
Yeah, they're using Wilson.
Not for much longer.
That's the one thing I do think, if whatever the professional league is doing,
you
that should filter down.
You have to, absolutely.
And you want that kid who wants to, play in the SLB when they're older with their professional basketball.
Yeah.
Then go in National League.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's a reason that when the juniors...
This is something we've said for a while, isn't it?
Yeah, but the juniors who are like under 12s have the same kit as the National League team. There's a reason for that. Because you're part of something. And you're training with something and you're getting familiarity. Like, why would you want to step up and then go, I've got a different feel, a different... Yeah, they got to do that. NBL, if you're listening...
Well, it's Basketball England, isn't it?
Yeah, wow.
It's Basketball England. But that makes sense. Is that something you can comment on, Paul? Would you think that was to conform SLB and the national basketball leagues?
I would readily welcome anyone to become part of the Molten family.
Thank you very much for listening to this episode. That is the end of this part. But do not worry, because coming soon is the second part of this episode, and it will be available soon.